鼻くそほじるの様になるアイドルなんているんですか？発掘って言ったってこの鉱山はいくら掘っても鼻くそしか出てきませんよ。
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
結局鼻くそですが。
Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of learning Japanese. Today we're going to go over another anime line of the day. We're taking one from the show Gintama and the episode, what episode is this? We're taking one from the 337th episode of Gintama. And as you just heard, our line is going to be, they may just be boogers now, but with enough polishing they could become boogers even harder than diamond. And in Japanese that's going to be, 今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより固い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
結局鼻くそですが。
So this is a pretty darn weird line, but there's a reason for that. For one, Gintama just in general is a pretty weird show. But secondly, this is probably the first anime line that we've covered that is kind of using metaphorical language here. So we do kind of need to know the context to this line. Basically, they're just talking about how possible it is for this girl to become an idol, and she's just sitting there picking her nose. So they kind of use a metaphor to say that she's a mine. But is that mine full of something valuable, or is it just full of boogers? And then the person who believes in her potential says, even if she's just a mine that's full of boogers, if we polish it enough, those boogers can become harder than diamond. Alright, so maybe I ruined the humor in it just by explaining it, but now what we're going to do is we're going to break down this line, because believe it or not, even though how absurd it is, it actually has a pretty nice structure that we can learn from and apply, modify, whatever, and use in everyday conversation, actually. But before we do that, of course, we're going to have to cover the vocabulary words that appear in it, and our table is going to be consisting of 3 words. That's it. The first one is hanakuso, which is just the word for boogers, basically. You can see it's a kind of a compound word there for hana, which means nose, and kuso, which means poop. So nose poop is literally what it means, but it means boogers. Next up, we have a verb, migaki ageru, which is just going to mean basically to polish up, to brush up. It is kind of also a compound word. The word migaku is a verb that means to brush or to polish. Here it's being combined with ageru. And last but not least, we have an adjective, and it's a very common one, katai, which is going to translate to basically hard or rough or solid. Alright, so with that, we are now going to jump into the line.
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
結局鼻くそですが。
You can see here that the line starts with ima, which is going to translate to now. We're going to mark it with a topic because we're talking about the current situation. We have the particle mada to mean still. Next up, we have our first vocabulary word, hanakuso, which means boogers, of course. So, ima wa mada hanakuso is just going to be right now, it is still boogers, and it is just referring to something that was already established in previous sentences in this conversation. Then after that, we're going to have this kind of grammar pattern, which is just kind of like the mo particle. If we were using it with a verb, but in this case we're using it with a noun, so we put demo, and this is going to be basically even if or even though. So even though it's just a boogers still now, and then we continue the sentence to say what even though. And moving on, we see that we come across our second vocabulary word here, which is migakiageru. Again, that means to polish up, to brush up. It is going to be conjugated here into the ba form, which is the conditional form. So migakiagereba is going to mean basically if we polish.
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げれば
And now we say what will happen if we polish. And we are now going to employ another grammar pattern, which is basically the yori grammar pattern to compare things. So the things that we're going to be comparing are diamondo, which is of course diamond, and the hanakuso, which is boogers. So diamondo yori is going to mean basically more than diamond. Then we say what the more is, and that's going to be the adjective, our third vocabulary word, katai, which means rough or hard. So diamondo yori, katai is going to mean basically rougher than diamond or harder than diamond. Then that's going to be modifying the word after it, which is hanakuso. So boogers, rougher than diamonds, basically. Then we're not done yet. We're going to employ yet another grammar pattern, which is the naru grammar pattern, which means to become. So it uses the word right before it, which is the hanakuso, which is already kind of being modified by the diamondo yori katai. So naru means to become, so to become boogers that are rougher or harder than diamonds. But we're still not done here because we're going to employ yet another grammar pattern, stacking on the grammar patterns here. So right after ni naru, we're going to use the kamo shirenai grammar pattern that basically means might or may. So ni naru kamo shirenai is going to mean basically might become. So let's combine that whole stackage of grammar patterns right there. Migakiagereba diamond yori katai hanakuso ni naru kamo shirenai is going to be they might become boogers that are rougher than diamonds if we polish them up.
磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
And of course, combine that with the first part of the sentence, 今はまだ鼻くそでも, which is going to mean basically even though they're still just boogers right now, 磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない. They might become boogers that are even harder than diamonds if we polish them.
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
In our English translation, we're going to naturalize that a bit more. We're not going to do the literal definitions of each of those grammar patterns that we encountered. So our English translation will be like, they may be just boogers now, but with enough polishing, they could become boogers even harder than diamonds. Alright, so that's actually going to be the full line right there. Let's just review the grammar patterns that we did come across a decent amount, as we know. We had the particle mada, we had the demo grammar pattern, which basically means even though, even if. We had the conditional ba grammar pattern slash conjugational form to mean basically conditional if. We had the yori grammar pattern, which is used to compare things and say something is like more this than the other thing. We had the ni naru grammar pattern to mean to become, and then lastly we had the kamo shirenai grammar pattern to mean may or might. And our full line using all of those grammar patterns, 今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない. They may be just boogers now, but with enough polishing, they could become boogers even rougher than diamonds.
発掘って言ったってこの鉱山はいくら掘っても鼻くそしか出てきませんよ。
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
結局鼻くそですが。
And just to reiterate, like I said before, this may be an absurd line with its choice of words, but the structure is very pretty elementary and common here, and we can easily modify this to say other things. All the grammar patterns used are very essential things. We could say like, I may just be a kid now, but with enough something I could become super mature. So yeah, the structure there is pretty sound. You just gotta say something may be a particular case that isn't quite impressive now, but if we do something about it, we could make it, or it could become something good.
発掘って言ったってこの鉱山はいくら掘っても鼻くそしか出てきませんよ。
今はまだ鼻くそでも磨き上げればダイヤモンドより硬い鼻くそになるかもしれない。
結局鼻くそですが。
Alright, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Anime Line of the Day. Remember, if there were grammar patterns mentioned for this line, they'll be mentioned in the description or the pinned comment below with links to the individual lessons on them. You can also probably find them in the playlist of our complete grammar video series shown on the screen right here alongside our anime playlist. And last but not least, don't forget to try to translate the bonus line we provided. Leave your translation in a comment below. Check out our Patreon, like the video, and subscribe. With all that said and done, see you next time.